Rusk, before I get started, is we are just celebrating our 10th year anniversary with Rusk. So the color itself is 10 years old. Not a long time in the business, but 10 years we have been fairly successful. I'm happy to say that Rusk, as of last year, this year I'm not sure, as of last year, Rusk was the #2 converted to hair color in the US. So that means salons are starting to use it and change, and I thank you for that. All right, let's go ahead and get started then, you guys. Speaking of gray coverage, since we're starting on that, I do have a model today. Everybody say hello to Anna. Hello. They're so nice. Anna is our model today. As you see, Anna has a little bit of gray. Okay, so what would you say Anna is gray? How much gray do you think? 80? 90? 80? All right, before I get started, I want to tell you guys with gray coverage, and this is something that's a little different with Rusk compared to some of the other colors that you're using. The other colors you're using are all good. I'm not saying they aren't, okay? But there's some difference, and I want to tell you what those are. Hey, when Rusk makes their color, you guys, compared to, and again, nothing against these colors. I worked for Goldwell for a number of years. I was their director of education. So if I was using Goldwell, Matrix, Wella, Schwarzkopf, Joico, Paul Mitchell, 99% of the time with the other brands, and I'm covering gray, I would use 20 volume, correct? Okay. With Rusk, that's a little different, okay, and let me tell you why, okay? This isn't a made-up story. It isn't something to make Rusk sound better. It's true. And if you don't use 10 sometimes when you should, nothing horrible happens, but if you're dissatisfied or unhappy, sometimes there's 2 reasons why, okay? When Rusk makes their color, you guys, you're going to read in the manual or swatch book or information that you see about Rusk, you're going to hear something that says micro pigments or micro technology. Basically what that means is this, very simple, it's not complicated. When the other colors are made, for example, the size of the dye, just for example, is like sugar, like granulated sugar. When Rusk makes their color, because of the micropigments, they compress that down to where it's like powdered sugar. So the pigments are just much smaller. The advantage to that with gray coverage is this, and I know that you all work on a lot of real strong, thick, coarse gray hair, it's still okay with 10 volume. And the only reason with Rusk why we use 10 volume for gray coverage, if we are staying at same level. If my client is a 5 and she wants to stay at a 5. If my client is a 5 and she wants to go to a 3 or going darker. Or if my client is a 5 and she wants to go to a 6, 1 level lighter, same level, darker, or 1 level lighter, 10 volume is what we use for gray coverage. Because that pigment is so small, we don't need to swell that hair up quite as much and open that cuticle up quite as much to get the color into the cortex, okay? That's it. It's the only reason why. Do I use 20 volume for gray coverage? Yes, and I'll tell you when I do, okay? But if my client normally is less, and we're going to use 10 volume today for 2 reasons. One is because I really want you to see what 10 volume can do, and 2, my client Anna She says that her scalp is a little sensitive, so 10 volume seems to be okay for her instead of 20 volume. Sometimes with 20 volume, her scalp gets a little bit irritated. So 10 volume is where we're going to stay. We're going to stay at same level, so I'm okay with that. All right. So if you use 20 sometimes when you don't need to, or you've used Rusk for the first few times, and maybe you've used 20 volume instead of 10 volume. If you are unhappy sometimes, usually it's one of two or two of two. And the complaints, if there are usually these. My end result is always warmer than what I'm looking for. I always see a little bit more gold, a little bit more red, a little bit more warmth than what I think I should be or what I used to see with my other color. Okay? And the other complaint is, I thought the gray coverage would be a little bit better. It's not quite as good as what I thought it would be. And a lot of times that's because we're getting that extra level of lift that we don't need. And that extra level of lift is giving us what? More warmth? Because we're pulling out more gold in the underlying pigment. So it's giving us more gold, more warmth. And when we add gold into gray, it makes that gray look a little see-through or more translucent. So two things. One is warmth we don't need. And two, the gold or warmth will make the gray look a little less covered. It's still covered, but it will look a little less covered. So if I have a client, a lot of times that's 75 to 100% gray, then I will use 20 volume, okay? But when I use 20 volume, back to what I was saying earlier, if I think my client is a 5, and I want to stay at a 5, and I use 20 volume, I might use 4 instead of 5 with my N to buy back a little pigment to keep it from being too light. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, and you don't always have to do a full level. Sometimes I will do half 5 and half 4. But I will add a darker N in there just to make sure that I get the coverage that I'm looking for. And there are times, you guys, when your client is 100% gray, 20 volume is fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Or, if I have a client that's a level 5, and she wants to go to a level 7, how many levels is that? 2. So, if I need to lift somebody 2 levels, I need to use 20 volume, okay? So again, 10 volume only if we're staying at same level, we're going darker, or 1 level of lift. Because sometimes I've talked to stylists that have been to a class with Rusk, and they say that somebody said 10 volume only for gray coverage and nothing else. That's not true, you guys. So 10 volume again, same level, darker, 1 level of lift. So, or if you need to go lighter. If I have a client that's a 5, and she wants to go to an 8, speaking of lighter hair, who said that? Lighter hair. Was it you?
No, she
yeah, okay.
She was there.
You guys, I want you to know this. If we're going from a 5 to an 8, that's how many levels? 3. So I need what volume developer? 30. Okay. 30 volume because I need 3 levels of lift. If she's not 100% gray, okay? So if she's 40% gray or 50% gray and I have to lift 3 levels, I really need to use a 30 volume. If I use a 30 volume, am I going to get 100% gray coverage? No. When I jump up to 30 volume, I will get a very, very good blending, but not always 100% coverage. And that's sometimes the mistake that we make, you guys, when we are covering gray, and our client comes in and she's a level 4, and she wants to be blonde to a 9 and get her gray covered. We can blend it, but we can't give her coverage. And with every company, to me, seriously, and it doesn't matter what company it is, you guys, if we are at a level 8, if we want to cover gray hair at a level 8, to me, 8, 9, and 10 is gray blending, not gray coverage, okay? So, because a lot of times I hear from stylists, I'm not getting very good gray coverage. And I will ask, what level are you trying to cover? And a lot of times I hear level 8, all right? At level 8, you guys, it's really going to be more blending than coverage. Our client today, what level do you think she is? 4? I think you're pretty close. A lot of times what I will do, you okay? So, okay. A lot of times what I will do, you guys, is this, for gray coverage as well. Sometimes, not all the time. Speaking of a level 8, sometimes if I want gray coverage at an 8, we're not an 8 today, but back to what I was saying for coverage at an 8. Sometimes if I want coverage at an 8, I will use half 7 and half 8, okay? Because it gives me a little bit of depth to make that client, if she wants coverage, to think that it's covered a little bit better. Does that make sense? Okay, so if my client says, and I always ask my client this, every client, because there's no such thing as perfect, all right? It doesn't happen. It's not real. If it's not perfect at first, would you rather be lighter or darker gray coverage? Which would you rather be?
Lighter.
Most of the time, your client is going to say lighter, all right? Every once in a while, they will say darker, okay? The next question I ask is, if it's not perfect, would you rather be warmer, gold, red, warmth, or would you rather be cooler, okay? No gold, no warmth. Because a lot of times we have a client that comes and sits down in our chair, and what will she say? I want my gray covered, but I don't want to see any warmth. Okay? So, back to with Rusk, we have a couple options, okay, for gray coverage. All right? Today I know that my client, Anna, is probably level 4. So you're correct. All right? But back to the swatches. A lot of times what I will do, if I'm working on a client for the first time, or maybe if you are switching a client over from Matrix to Rusk, or from another color to Rusk, then just pick these up for the heck of it, just to see what the Rusk 4 is. Because this might be darker than the 4 you're used to seeing, okay? So I will fan it out, and make sure that you always fan it out. I will do it in the front, I will do it on the crown, and I will do it on the back. So this is a 4.
No.
Okay, what do you guys think? Now, do me a favor and don't think about warmth or coolness with the swatch. Just think about the blend of the swatch in the hair. Do you think it's a 4?
No.
Do you think it's lighter?
No.
Do you think this is lighter?
Yes. Yes.
I do too. So when I look, then I grab a 3 just to see. And that blends a little bit more to me, does it not? Okay, so I think we're closer to a 3 than a 4, but my client has told me that she would rather be a little lighter than darker. And I also know that my client Anna told me that on the ends, she would rather have a little warmth than coolness, okay? So I'm going to use a 4 on the regrowth, knowing that it's going to be a little bit lighter. And what I don't want to do with my client every time with Rusk, because the other thing I hear sometimes with Rusk, you guys, is your color is dark. All right, it gets dark repetitively when it's used over and over again. So on gray coverage, when I'm doing my clients, again, back to gray, the first time I do a client, sometimes I will go from scalp to ends. Okay, so the color is all the same and it's all even. The second time I do that client, the third time I do that client, a lot of times I will just do the N and whatever other color I'm using on the gray, and then on the ends, I'm not using N anymore. I'm just using the target color, because the more I pull in through the ends, it gets browner and browner and darker and darker, right? Okay, so Rusk has an option for you guys when it comes to blending the gray on the ends. So on Anna, we know that we're a 4, all right? I'm going to use a level 4, all right? So we have, for gray, and if you guys look at your swatches, it's in here as well. You don't have to, but I want you to know that it's there if you want to. We have NC. We have an NC series. You guys, NC means natural cool. NC for gray coverage. 100% gray coverage. NC starts, thank you, at a level 1 and goes to level 10. I want you to know that NC, in your other color lines that you were using, is more like the NN. Do you know what I'm saying? NC is for hard to cover, resistant gray, and for those clients who say, I don't want to see any warmth. All right? Because this is my N, and the C means cool. So what Rusk has done for me is they have given me an N for hard to cover resistant gray, and they've added a little bit of blue in there. Okay? So that blue helps to cancel out a little bit of the warmth. All right? So NC series is an option if I want to use that for gray. I also have NW, all right? And the NW means what, do you think? Warm, natural warm, of course, all right? So if I have a client who I know maybe I am covering gray and I want it to be more gold, more red, more copper, warmer, brighter, and I still need to use brown to cover the gray, a lot of times I will use NW instead of NC, because the NC will do what? It will cool it off or cancel a little bit of that warmth sometimes, which is good if that's what you want. But if you want it to be bright, copper, more red, more vibrant, then I would probably use the NW instead of the NC if I can. Okay? If she's a level 5 and above, then I can use NW.
Let me explain.
Below a 5, I only have NC. Okay? Because below a 5, we don't need gold most of the time. Okay? So that's usually the reason why. Then they gave us a natural light series. Let me explain this to you. Okay? The natural light series, Eduardo,
yes.
The natural light series, just in case, is for gray blending only, not gray coverage. All right, gray blending only. But there are times, remember I said that sometimes when you use Rusk compared to another color, Rusk might appear a little darker. Back to what we were saying, okay? You have a couple options. And I want you to notice that in the Rusk swatch book, when you look at our swatch book, you're always going to see this bar on top of every series. this bar actually will tell you that the blend of that particular series. You guys, Rusk is a blended color. And what I mean by that is every series that we talk about will have a little bit of brown in there for us. It's still not going to cover gray 100%, but it does have a little bit of brown in there, okay? So the advantage to that is at times, if you want to cheat a little bit and your client is 60% gray and you want to use a red or a copper on her hair straight, you really can. Is the gray going to be the same color as everything else? No. It's going to be a little bit lighter and appeared more like a highlight, but it's not going to be orange or pink, okay? So that brown helps us a little bit as far as a blend of the series. Last thing, when you look at our swatch book, wherever you see double numbers, 66, 44, 22, basically next to that number, you're going to see a CC, which is copper, copper, or an RR, which is red, red, or an MM, which is mahogany, mahogany. Remember I said we are a blended color. Wherever you see double numbers or double letters, that means that that color and level is a pure red, a pure copper, or a pure mahogany. No brown, okay? It's just red. It's just mahogany, or it's just copper. Last thing I'm going to do before I start my model is I want you guys to understand what Rusk tried to do with the swatch book, okay? Because it can be a little confusing sometimes when you first look at our swatch book. And I always ask this, and sometimes it'd be confusing, but I'm going to ask. How many of you go by numbers only? When you look at a color or a shade, how many of you only look at the number?
¿Cuántas personas de ustedes solamente ven los números cuando están viendo el libro?
Nobody?
I think nobody.
Okay. Some stylists, and why Rusk did this on the swatch book, you guys, is some stylists, when they look at a color and they want gold, they only look at 3. Because on the universal or European number system, 3 is the same as G or gold. Okay? And why I say that is when you look at our swatch book, you will notice that the first number, of course, is always going to be the level. And then next to it, you're going to see a number. So you see a 8, that's a level 8. Dot, which means nothing. And then you see a number which is 3. And then you see next to it a letter which is G. They mean exactly the same thing. Some people will look at it and they want to know that there's a 3 there because they only know gold as 3.
Let me explain, this is very important.
Hang on for just a sec.
Okay.
And then some of us, me, when I look at a color, I always look for the letter because that's the way I always started. So what I do with this swatch book is I don't care about the number. You can just cover the number up and it's an 8G. They really mean the same thing. And what Rusk tried to do is they tried to make it perfect for everybody. So if a stylist only goes by numbers, they have the 3. And for the rest of us, we have a G, okay? And they mean the same thing. Last but not least, Eduardo, and then I'll let you explain.
No problem.
Wherever you see 2 letters or 2 numbers, you will see a 1-3 on the beiges. Basically, what that means in the numbers world, 1 is ash and 3 is gold. I want you to look at this bar. This bar is going to tell you our beiges are violet with just a little bit of gold. That's a beige. Okay, for us, all I care about is the B, which is beige. All right? Beautiful toners. And I'll talk about these a little bit later. Love, love, love the beiges for toning. One more example. You're going to see a 9. So this is a 9, 3, 4. In the numbers world, you guys, 3 is gold, 4 is copper. So just cover the numbers up, and you will see a 9, gold, copper. Same thing. So don't care about the numbers. You don't have to look at the numbers. It's just the first number is always the level. The second number, or letter, is always the shade, okay? There are stylists who only go by numbers, all right? Some stylists only look at numbers and they don't look at letters. So we tried to make it kind of perfect for everybody.
Number 4 is copper.
4 is copper.
And 9?
Pardon me?
No, number 9?
Level 9, right, and then 4 is copper, 3 is gold. So, 2. Oh, there is a 2, but I'm going to go over that with you. All right. So, and I'm going to review all that one more time, but I just wanted to talk about it. Tubes. Rusk, it strong tube, and I can't hold on to anything. Rusk is a 3.4 ounce tube. It's a big tube, you guys. So a lot of colors come in a 2 ounce tube. We're a 3.4 ounce tube. You might read something about, and this doesn't really, it really doesn't mean any, well, it means a little bit. You're going to read something about a pharmaceutical grade tube. This is it. What that means is there's an inner lining inside this tube. So there's 2 linings. It helps to prevent oxidation. So it lasts forever on the shelf. A long time unopened, it should last you forever, all kidding aside. All right? Opened, 3 years. 3. All right? So durability is good. Inner lining in the tube, 3.4 ounce tube. With gray, and we are mixed, Rusk, when you mix your color, it's 1 ounce of color, 1.5 ounces of developer. With everything except gray. If you wish, and it's in the manual, so I'm not making it up, if you wish for gray hair to mix it 1 to 1, you can. All right? And I will do that a lot for gray hair. Because what that gives me is it gives me a little bit more pigment and a little bit more staining, for a lack of better words, for my gray. So you don't have to, but if you want to mix it 1 to 1, you can. Okay? It's not the end of the world. All right? So, and I will today. I'm going to mix it 1 to 1 instead of 1 to 1.5. All right? So, 3.4 ounce tube. How many of you use a scale? Bless you. How many of you measure? Occasionally. How many of you use one of these as a beaker? You guys are horrible. With a scale, I'm going to tell you something that is really simple with a scale, okay? It will save you, I swear, a lot of money. It really will. And it will save you, believe it or not, time, okay? If you have a scale, and I don't, use it, yeah. Because you all have one, it's sitting back there you never use, except you want to measure your food for your diet. Ounces or grams, it doesn't matter, okay? 1 ounce is 30 grams, by the way, all right? I usually always mix in ounces. If you use a scale, you guys, all kidding aside, it can be really easy. The scale is here. I put the bowl on the scale, and I turn the scale on. It automatically goes to 0, all right? It doesn't weigh the bowl. It doesn't do anything. So if I want an ounce of color, I put an ounce of color in the bowl, and it says 1 ounce. I personally am really kind of stupid, when it comes to math sometimes. Or if it's really busy and the phone's ringing, you're trying to answer questions, you're trying to do 4 things at once, you're trying to eat lunch at the same time you're mixing your color. An ounce of color, and then I hit the scale, it says TARE or the on button, hit that again, and it goes to 0. I already know I have an ounce of color in there. I pour an ounce and a half of developer in there, and I'm done. That's how simple it is. I don't have to try to measure. I don't have to try to look at the tube because my eyes aren't as good as they used to be and figure out if it's 20 or 40 or 60. And I don't have to pour my developer into the beaker and pour my beaker into the bowl. And I always have a little bit of a developer left in the bottom of the beaker. So it eliminates all that. So if you guys do ever get a scale, it can really make things simple for you, all right? So with the Rusk tube, you guys, the other thing I do really quickly is you're gonna, when it comes, it's bent over like this. I just kind of bend that up and I kind of put a little crease on it like that, because a lot of times if you're using a key, if you don't do that, every once in a while the key will break the tube, okay? So it helps to just kind of flatten it out a little bit before you do your color. So today I know Anna is a level, or we're going to use a level 4. And we're going to use for chocolate, which is level 4. 8 is the same thing as chocolate, okay, in the numbers world. So when you look at the swatch book, you're going to see a 4, 8, CH, and CH is chocolate, all right? So I know that I'm going to do, we're on 100% gray, all right? So I'm going to do 3/4 of my formula is going to be in, and 1/4 of my formula is going to be the chocolate, all right? So I'm going to put 20 mils of chocolate, and with my NC I'm going to put 60. My mixture is going to be 4 NC 1, and I'm going to use 60 mils. All right, I'm going to do 100 mils. All right, so I'm going to, or 80. I'm going to do 60 mils. 60 mils of NC. And I'm going to do 20 mils of the chocolate, because my formula is going to be 3/4 in and 1/4 chocolate, because I'm 100% gray and I need to know that there's enough brown in my formula so my gray hair doesn't look blue or red or pink or another shade. The chocolates, you guys, are made up of red, yellow, blue, violet, and orange. Chocolate is the only shade that's kind of everything mixed together. Sometimes, and this happened to me, and I'm going to admit it, I was going to fill some blonde hair. And when you fill blonde hair, and I'm going to talk about that, it needs to be warm, all right? The chocolates are a warm brown. And I thought, it'll work, because I was going to do chocolate over the top of it. And I filled the blonde with chocolate. And blonde hair always picks up blue, violet, and green, and throws away red, yellow, and orange. So all the blue and the violet on the blonde picked up on the hair, and it threw everything away, and she was like green, all right? So I needed to remove it, and then I needed to start all over again. So no, on gray hair as well, I went into a salon, and I had a stylist on 100% gray hair, use chocolate only, and the gray hair was kind of blue, all right? Because gray hair doesn't have what? Pigment. You guys, so it needs brown. That's why we put N in our gray. So with Rusk, you always need to use NC or NW or NL in your color if you're covering gray. All right? If you're less than 30% gray, you don't need to use any N in your formula. All right? Remember I said Rusk is a blended color? So if my client is less than 30% gray and I don't want to add brown, I can use any color I want. Okay? If she turns 30 to 70% gray, usually half of my formula is in. Okay? If she's 75 to 100% gray, usually 3/4 of my formula is in. I'm using 60 mils. Okay, so just to kind of break it down real quick, 60 mils of color. All right, there's 30 mils to an ounce, so that is 2 ounces. So 2 ounces of color. And I'm using 20 mils of chocolate. So again, it's a little less than an ounce. There's 30 mils to an ounce, so it's 3/4 of an ounce. Okay, does that make sense?
¿Lo pueden repetir?
Mix. In a salon, you should remix. All kidding aside, you should remix. All right, don't use too much color. I always use more color than I need because I don't want to have to go back and remix because it's boring enough to watch me put color on hair and to have to remix. You guys, to me, Rusk is very easy to mix. All that color I used, it's very creamy and very easy to mix. It's not complicated at all. If you want to use a whisk, you can. You don't have to, but some stylists like to use a whisk, and there's nothing wrong with that. But to me, it mixes very easily. So.
Él me...
The question was, and it happens all the time, in a salon, if I have a client and she is more gray in the front than she is in the back, okay? And that goes two ways, you guys, and we'll talk about gray only, all right? And let's just say, first, we're staying at same level, okay? She's a 4, and we're gonna stay at a 4, all right? Just for example. And she is 70% gray in the front, and she's 40% gray in the back, okay? In the front, I would use my formula with 3 parts in and 1 part whatever other color I wanted to in the front. In the back, I would just do 50-50, okay? So in a perfect world. It's not always a perfect world. So if I'm going to only use one formula, I would use the one for more gray, then less gray. I would use 3/4 to a quarter just to make sure that all the gray was covered. Does that make sense? And if it's not a perfect world. All right. Now, on that same note, if I have a client that's 50% gray, okay, in the back, and 70% gray in the front, and I am lifting 2 levels. She's a 5, okay, or a 4, and I want to go to a 6. Are you following me? Yes. Okay. Then in the front, 3/4 of my formula is going to be N, and 1/4 is going to be my target color, correct? In the back, if I am lifting 2 to 3 levels, and she's a level 4, and I go to a 6 on the natural hair, what am I going to see? What do you guys think I'm going to see? I'm lifting 2 levels, and 50% of her hair is a level 4. 50% of her hair I really don't have to worry that much about because she's gray, correct? And I'm putting some brown in there. But the other 50% of her hair is not gray. And when I lift 2 levels, what am I going to see?
Like highlights.
I'm going to see some red or gold because I'm lifting 2 levels. And when I pull 2 levels from a 4 to a 7, I go through 2 levels of orange. So again, if there's a complaint, it's usually my end result is always warmer than what I'm looking for. So why wouldn't I use some ash in my formula? Okay, I'm going to use ash. All right, so I'm going to use half NC, and half of my formula can be ash. Because it's not going to be blue, it's not going to be green. That brown hair that's lifting 2 levels is still going to be brown, but it's not going to be orange anymore. You guys, that's what I mean about using your ashes. Does that make sense? I'm using ash instead of NC. Because if I use 3/4 NC and 1/4 of another color, my end result is going to be golder. But if I use half ash and half NC, my end result is going to be a neutral brown. It's still going to be brown. It's not going to be green. It's not going to be blue. It's going to be brown. Because the ash cancels out orange. Blue cancels out yellow. Green cancels out orange. Okay? And blue-green cancels out red-orange. So it doesn't make it blue, it makes it brown. Okay? So that's why we need to use more ashes in the salon, because NC is not your ash. Okay? All kidding aside, I go into a lot of salons and I ask what they use to cancel out warmth, and half of the time I hear NC. Okay? And NC is not ash, you guys. It's a cool brown. But brown, when you lift, is still going to turn warm. There's not enough blue in there that's going to give me the control of the orange. Okay? And there's a lot of times, speaking of ashes, you guys, if you have a client, and there's not a lot of them, but if you have a client that is... You doing okay?
Yeah.
If you have a client that is not gray, and she's a level 4. She's a 4. Not color treated hair, but we're lucky enough to have a client that comes in and she's not colored. And her natural level is a 4. And she tells me she wants to go to a 7 or an 8 caramel. Do we hear that once in a while?
Yeah.
Okay. What would you use in the salon? What would you do? Tell me, be honest, tell me, what would you do?
Caramel, like gold?
A caramel, like a caramely color.
Gold?
And she's a level, we'll say she's a 4. And she wants to go to a 7 or an 8. How many levels is that? 3 or 4. So we're going to either use 30 or 40 volume, because we need the lift, right? And what do I need to make sure that I do? I need to make sure that I cancel out orange. Because you guys, if we go from a 4 to an 8, I'm going through 3 levels of orange. And I need to balance that out to a brown. So, in an easy, perfect world, if I want to go to a 7, I would use 30 volume and 7 double ash. And my 7 double ash would cancel out the orange, and I would still have a little warmth, but it'll be kind of a caramely brown. If I wanted to go to an 8, I could use 8 double ash, and it would be a pretty 8 kind of caramely brown. because that blue violet is going to cancel out that orange as it lifts. I can't use NC to do that because my end result is going to be much too gold at the end. So I need to use my ash. And I don't always, if it's not color treated, I don't always have to bleach and tone. Does that make sense? Because it can be pretty. Ash can be very pretty. And it can work very well. And to me, it's easier to do that if I can than to have to bleach and tone if I don't have to. But remember, the law of color is color won't lift color. So she's a level 4 color treated hair. What do I need to do? I need to lighten her with a bleach. All right, and then I need to tone. Does that make sense, you guys?
Yes.
All right, great. Real quickly, I want to tell you, and we went 1-to-1 here on Anna. When I'm covering gray, you guys, a lot of times what I will do, and you're welcome to come up and look or do whatever you want, but a lot of times what I will do, especially for gray coverage, is I will forgive me because I want you to see. When I'm covering gray, especially, what I see a lot of times, and it's not wrong, and I have the habit of doing it as well, a lot of times when we're covering gray, we have a tendency to kind of put it on and push it away, or put it on and push it away. When I'm covering gray, especially higher percentages of gray, if I can, I like to kind of dab it on, so I make sure that gray is covered. I've noticed personally, if I can still see kind of gray through the color when I put it on, usually my gray coverage might not be quite as good as what I want it to be. So when I'm covering gray, I just kind of dab it on and make sure it's thick enough, is all I'm trying to say. So, and I find my gray coverage is a little bit better that way.
Muy importante ese punto, porque muchas veces lo que hace uno no, así yo estoy aprendiendo eso para mi mamá. Yo me lo paso una vez y ya se acabó, y a veces no me cubre la cana 100%. Entonces es muy importante lo que está diciendo, voltear el cepillo y estar completamente seguro de que está poniendo la pintura en la cana. Muchas veces uno lo hace tan rápido, lo que hace tan rápido que no lo aplica bien. Entonces ese punto que acaba de decir es muy importante.
And Anna said, and I just naturally do that, but I usually do both sides as well. I do the top and the bottom both. So.
That is only in the when the people that has very difficult gray, or is every time?
Yes, especially in the
That
cyber.
application is every time? Yeah?
You guys, great. How many of you have that 1 or 2 clients that, we all have them, trust me. That 1 or 2 clients, no matter what you do, you have trouble covering the gray?
Yeah.
Did you have any of those?
Yes.
What have you tried?
Because the color first. Yeah, 15 minutes.
Stain first? Okay. What do you guys do? Come, speak to me. Come on, let me know. What have you tried?
¿Qué es lo que hacen? ¿Quieren saber? Cuando tienen problemas como cubriendo las canas.
Come on.
Go darker. Yeah, go darker.
Go darker.
Go darker.
And then mix the developer is lower than the formula.
Okay. All right. You guys, what I've noticed is this, all kidding aside, with gray, hard to cover resistant gray, and I want to say this, and it's not in the Rusk manual, it's not in anything other than through my mouth, but when I was working for another company, we had a chemist that came in, and he did an hour and a half on the importance of cleansing the hair before we color. All right? Some people believe that's important. But I will tell you this. If I have a client and her hair is really hard to cover, gray, I have issues with it no matter what I do, I wish it could be a little bit better. The first time I will try something different is I will do a quick clarifying shampoo on that client before I do her gray coverage. Okay? And let me tell you why. Especially with our clients today, our clients use, and we use, which are good, a lot of styling products and stuff who have, they have silicones and other stuffs that give us shine, give us control, which I love and I like and I use them all the time. But the ammonia level in Rusk is less than 2%. And most colors are today. The ammonia level in our color is very, very low. Okay? So sometimes if we have a buildup on the hair of styling product, and maybe it's been 3 or 4 days since that client is shampooed, it's hard for that color to penetrate through all that stuff and get inside the cortex to cover the gray. So sometimes a quick cleanse. Don't scrub the scalp because you don't want to irritate the client, but the ammonia level is really low. So just cleanse that hair and then do the gray coverage. And you're going to find a lot of times that might be enough and it's going to help the gray coverage. Especially if you have a client, and I don't know if you have a lot of that around here or not, but if you have a client that is on well water, that lives out in the country and is on a well of some kind, there's a lot of minerals and vitamins and stuff in that water that build up on the hair, all right? And it makes it hard to cover the gray sometimes. Also, if you have a client that is on a lot of medication, all right, one of the worst is, and we all need it, so there's nothing wrong with it, one of the worst is like the anti-anxiety medications, so, because they build up on the hair, all right? When we take an aspirin or any kind of drug, basically, within about 24 to 48 hours, it's in our hair, all right? And in about 3 days, it will leave our bloodstream, most of the time, if you're ever doing a urine test, just to let you know. But it will stay in our hair forever. So if they want to do a drug test on somebody, if they take a section of hair, it will be better than a blood test, all kidding aside. So a lot of times it's hard to cover the gray if we have a client that takes a lot of medications, all right? So cleansing that hair first sometimes helps a lot, believe it or not. It really does. Also, the hairline here in the front. Most of the female and some male clients use a lot of like face creams and or makeup. And we always rub that into the hairline because we don't want this big white line when we're blending our makeup in. So it sometimes that if we have hard to cover gray in the front, that makeup can help retard that gray coverage as well. So even if you're not going to shampoo, what I will do sometimes is I will take a cotton ball, like a cotton swab, with a little bit of rubbing alcohol and cleanse that hairline first before I do the gray coverage. Just to take away a little bit of that makeup and face cream as well. So give it a shot, you guys. Sometimes it really helps. It really does. So because this is always the hardest, and I'm notorious for always missing a spot in the front. I'm horrible about doing that. I don't know why, but I always do. So ask my wife.
So when we shampoo and we dry the hair and apply the color?
Good question. At the end of it, after you clarified the hair, you just need to dry the hair about 70%. It doesn't need to be 100% dry, you guys. It really doesn't. And I personally like the hair on the mid shaft and ends a little damp before I pull the color through, because it evens the porosity a little bit. So when I pull the color through the mid shaft and ends, it doesn't grab darker on the ends. It's a little bit more even. So don't be afraid to leave it a little damp is what I'm saying. So the mid-shaft and ends. The law of color is what? Who said that? Who? Oh, I thought she said that. I really did. I thought, man, woo, you're learning quick. I did. I thought, wow, someone's paying attention. Color won't live color. You're correct. All right. So we all know that. But there are times when I'll cheat a little bit. And today is one of those when we're in a salon. I have the mid shaft and ends. I know color isn't going to live color. She wanted to throw a little warmth on there. I'm going to use 4 chocolate, 4-8-CH, and I use 30 volume, excuse me, on the mid shaft and ends, just because I hopefully might get a little bit more warmth out of there. Probably not, but it might help just a little bit. The other thing I can do, and I'm going to go into that a little bit later, there's another thing I will do that I cheat once in a while if I'm going to do a kind of a quick corrective color, and I'll talk with you guys about it. But in a salon, I will do that every once in a while. It doesn't help a lot, but it does uno poquito, a little bit. So we're going to do that today. Now, second time, third time, fourth time I do the client. Again, she has plenty of color on the mid shaft and ends. What I don't need anymore on the ends is what? Well, I need a little color, but I don't need brown, you guys. I don't need any in any longer on this mid shaft and ends. And that's what I mean about when we're doing our clients. After we've colored their gray 2 or 3 times, when they come back in a perfect world, I would mix 2 formulas. One for the gray and one for the mid shaft and ends without any brown in it. If she was red or copper, what I would do is my NW or NC on the gray and copper, and on the mid shaft and ends, just copper. I don't need brown anymore. Because what a lot of times that happens, can you hold that for me? Can you put it on for me? What a lot of times that happens is this, you guys. When we continue to pull in an imperfect world in the salon, this is what happens. We do our base color or cover our gray. We set the bowl down. Gray coverage for Rusk, and everybody remember this please. Timing for optimum timing for gray coverage is 45 minutes. 45 minutes. Not 30, 45. You can get good gray coverage in 30 minutes. But what I've noticed is this, all kidding aside, 6 weeks down the road, my gray coverage isn't quite as good as it is if I let it process for the full 45 minutes. All right? So 45 minutes for gray coverage. So in an imperfect world, what we will do is a lot of times is we'll put the our gray coverage formula on the regrowth. We'll let it sit for 30 minutes or so. And then we pull the rest of the color kind of through the mid shaft and ends, right? Or we do a soap cap or with the same color, okay? And that's what happens a lot of times when we continue to keep adding that brown, is a lot of times what we hear from our client is this. My hair isn't quite as shiny as it used to be, or maybe it's not quite as red as it used to be. It's starting to get a little bit browner. So can we do a gloss treatment? Can we do something to make it a little bit more red? Whatever it might be. And that's usually because we're just kind of pulling that brown through the ends. All right. So again, in a perfect world, what we would do is mix 2 formulas. All right. In an imperfect world, what I would do is with my standard formula, if I let it sit in the bowl, before I get ready to put it back on the hair again, what I will do is I will take a little bit of my red, or copper or chocolate, and I'll squirt some fresh color only in the bowl before I pull it through the ends. And it just kind of refreshes that color a little bit and helps to take a little bit more of that brown out, okay? If you can mix two formulas, it's even better, you guys. So, do me a favor if you would. What time is it? 11:40. You guys, let's take 10 minutes. I'm just going to finish throwing the color on the ends. So let's take a break, 10 minutes, have a cigarette if you want, go to the restroom, have a little coffee, and 10 minutes only. So. Has a permanent color and a demi-color, all right? The demi-color is 100% ammonia free. The permanent color is less than 2% ammonia. So when you look at the swatch book, shades that come in both will have a triangle and a circle, all right? "100% gray coverage." We've certainly talked about gray hair. You should notice this, all kidding aside, maybe not the first time you switch your clients over, maybe not the second time, but that third time, that fourth time, that fifth time you repetitively do Rusk on your client, you should see the color on the midshaft and ends lasting a lot longer. There are times, all kidding aside, if I'm doing a red or a copper or a chocolate, I don't have to refresh the midshaft and ends every time I do the client. And that's because those pigments are so small, they just really fill that hair as full as it can be, and it just seems to last longer, okay? And that's the reason why, if you notice that, and I think you will. The marine therapy is really what keeps the hair so shiny and so healthy. You guys, there are times, and you probably noticed this already, all kidding aside, where I will do color on a client and her hair will actually feel a little bit better after the color than before the color. And that sea kelp really is a good thing. There's reality to that. Remember what I said earlier? And we talked about this. This is the European number system and letter system. So when you look at that swatch book, you're going to see A, or ash, is 1. Okay? They mean the same thing. Again, back to looking at the swatch book where you see numbers and letters. So ash is 1. And where you see in our swatch book 1, 1, or AA, remember what that means is what? What does double numbers or double letters mean?
Like red.
I'm sorry?
Red.
You're right. It's a pure tone. So it doesn't mean because you see 2 A's or 2 1's that it means that the ash is twice as strong. It just means that it is a pure ash, you guys. There's no brown in it. Our old ash used to be a 0, 1, which is NA. And the complaint was it wasn't controlling enough, so we went to a pure tone ash, okay? So don't be afraid of it. It doesn't mean it's double strong, okay? It just means that it's a pure ash. Your beiges are your toners, and I'll talk about that quickly in a minute. Love our beiges for toning because they're violet, 1-3, ash with just a little bit of gold. Your V's are 2. 2 and V, your violets are the same thing. So you have a 2 violet and a violet. Remember the violet is a pure violet. No brown in it.
The last one is
No, go ahead.
the last one is 7 and A, or
The last one is your chocolate. And chocolate is CH in the letters and 8 in the numbers. So remember 8 is chocolate. And in some companies, 8 is a number that will vary a little bit. It's not always chocolate, just to let you know. So Our chocolates, and I'll talk about that real quickly, are a warm chocolate. All right, and I'll talk about that with you guys. Some chocolates are cooler, mochas, coffees, tobaccos. They're more of a kind of a cool chocolate. We are a warm chocolate. All right, so you can cool that off, and it's very easy. So coppers are 4, mahoganies are 5, red is 6, or R or C. So again, when you look at the swatch book, just remember if you only go by letters, just look at the letters, because the numbers mean exactly the same thing as the letters. All right? So NC again, you'll notice that the NC has 3 zeros. Remember I said in some lines the NC is like your NN. It's for that hard to cover resistant gray. 0 and N mean the same thing. So in the numbers world, 0 means N. So you have 3 zeros with the NC. With the NW, you have 2 zeros and a 3. Natural warm. They added a little bit of gold to it. All right? NL, 1 0. All right? Not for gray coverage, for gray blending only. All right? So no gray coverage. SL. When you look at our swatch book, you guys, the SL series means super lighteners. That's our 12 series, or our high lift blondes. I'll talk about that. So SL 00N doesn't mean sloon. It means super light, 00, and then the N. 0 and N mean the same thing, okay? So our intensifiers, controllers, and modifiers, I'm going to talk about those in a second. And we have an ingredient called triple action clear. All right? You guys, when you look at the swatch book, and I want to go over this real quick. NC, NW, NL, we've got these. Remember I said our ash series? Our ash series is double numbers or double letters. That means that it's a pure ash. I also said, remember that there is a bar on top of every series. When you guys look at your color wheel and you see you have a client that comes in and she's red orange, that will let you know that you need maybe green blue. So at a level 4 and 6, it tells you that you have a little bit of green and a lot of blue because you need to cancel out the red. All right? At a level 7, you don't need that much green, so it's 3/4, 4/4 blue with just a touch of green because you still need to cancel out a little bit of that orange. All right? And at a level 8, 9, and 10, you definitely don't need green anymore. You just need blue, violet, or violet. So these bars are always going to tell you when you look at that hair and you look at the color wheel, right across from orange is green. Right across from gold is violet. So it just helps you to pick the particular right ash that you need to cancel out what you need on the hair. All right? This 10 double ash and the 10 beige are beautiful toners. All right? This 10 beige, you guys, if you've highlighted somebody's hair and she's yellow, because if you need to cancel yellow out, you need what? Violet. And this is violet with just a little bit of gold. So you highlight somebody, she's still yellow to gold, and you want to tone that, this 10 beige is a beautiful, beautiful toner. Now, with Rusk, remember that you can use it 2 different ways. We have a developer called balancing lotion or deep shine lotion. Underneath in small print it says balancing lotion. We call it balancing lotion. It says deep shine on the bottle. This is your 6 volume or 3%. This is your demi developer. Okay? Now, if you use the balancing lotion with a demi, the color with a circle, it's mixed 1 to 1.5 just like the color. And the demi, remember, is 100% ammonia free, no ammonia. The permanent color has a little bit of ammonia in it. But for whatever reason, and I do it all the time, if I want to use the permanent color as a demi-like color, I can mix my permanent color with my demi developer, mixed 1 ounce of color, 2 ounces of the balancing lotion. And I can make my permanent color a demi-like color. All right? The difference between the two is the permanent color has a teeny bit of ammonia in it. Just a little bit. All right? A lot of times on real strong, healthy, beautiful hair, and I'm toning the mid-shaft and ends, and maybe I'm covering gray and doing a red, and I want to balance the mid-shaft and ends, and maybe 6R doesn't come in demi, I can mix the 6R permanent color with the balancing lotion, put it on the mid-shaft and ends, and use it as a demi-like. Okay? So it can be used both ways. Any questions on that? Do you understand what I'm saying? Any questions? A lot of times stylists don't like to, if we're booth renting and we don't have a lot of space, sometimes stylists don't like to carry both a permanent color and a demi-color. All right? So it can help things be a little bit more reasonable for you, but I am going to ask you to do this. In the 10 beige and the 10 double ash, please carry those both in permanent and demi, because those are both beautiful toners. Okay? And there are a lot of times if the hair is fragile and I've just used a lightening powder or cream on my client, I would prefer to use a demi if I could. Okay? If I'm toning. Because there's no ammonia, there's nothing in there that's going to hurt the hair. So if I have that option, I will use that. Question?
Yes, so let me see if I understand.
Okay.
In the 10 beige and the 10
Double ash. Mm-hmm.
preferable to use this one?
If I am toning after I've done a lightener, a bleach powder or cream, then I will use my demi color with my demi developer. All right. But if for whatever reason the hair is kind of gold and I just maybe want to tone it, I haven't lightened it, I haven't bleached it, but I just want to tone it a little bit, I can use the balancing lotion with a permanent 10B or 10 ash mixed 1 to 2. 1 ounce of color, 2 ounces of balancing lotion, and it can be used as a demi, but it has a little bit of ammonia in it.
How long will you leave it for?
You guys, that's a good question. When I'm toning, and this is what's different with us compared to like Shades EQ. How many of you are toning with shades? Anybody? Shades EQ? Redken? Shades EQ? Okay. You guys, if you're toning with Redken Shades EQ, it's quick. I mean, it's a minute, 2 minutes, and you get it off, or you're blue, or green, or whatever. All right. Our demi, or permanent when you're toning, is a little slower. I want to say 3 to maybe 7 minutes. Okay, depending on how gold or how orange you are, it's a little slower. So just keep an eye on it. It's not going to be a matter of a minute, where you have to get it off. It's not as quick as shades.
With the permanent affect the base when we use the permanent.
There's not enough ammonia in there to bump the base. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, because the question is, will it affect the base? And that's a good question. Because it would be the same as if you use the demi just without ammonia. You might, if you see it, it'll be minute. It won't be a lot that you have to worry about. Okay.
No, but with the permanent,
there's not enough ammonia. Remember, we're less than 2% ammonia, so there's really not enough. If anything's going to do it, it's the developer, not the color. There's not enough ammonia in there to bump the base.
Oh, does that mean we don't use the 10 or 20?
Don't use a 10 or 20 for, yes. Balancing lotion only if you're toning. A lot of times you guys will use a 10. If you can, drop down, because then you'll notice a bump at the base. 10 volume is going to give you a little bit of a warmth. All right. So unless you want to bump the bass. Remember this, real quickly, in our Demi, we have our old Ash series, which is a 01. Remember, that's an NA. So if you want to tone with these, they're an option for you, okay? So you have a 6 through 9 Ash in the Demi to tone with as well, all right? And there are times when I'll use the 9 Demi, 9 Demi 01 with the 10 beige if I just need a little bit more blue, okay? So don't be afraid to mix the two together is what I'm saying, all right? Our golds, very blended brown gold. Gray coverage is really good with this, you guys. So remember, we're a blended color. Excuse me, this bar is going to tell you on the top kind of the blend. So it's not a screaming yellow gold. Some golds are really yellow. We're not. It's a very pretty, pretty gold. Easy to use. Love, love, love our coppers. I really like our coppers a lot. They are a blended copper. You see that there's a little brown in there. They're not screaming orange, all right? They're a very pretty copper. I like them. Our reds, to me, and I always argue with my boss about this, our reds are kind of a violet-y red, all right? I believe they have some violet in there. Now, if there's ever a disadvantage to that, it is sometimes on a level 5, and you want to get it as red as you can get it, sometimes the 5R, because it has a little bit of violet in there, can be a little browner sometimes than what I wish it could be, all right? Because violet does what? It kind of cancels out a little bit of the orange. So I like to, if I want it more red, then I use my 6RR, which is a pure red. I will add some of that in with my 5R to give me a pump of red. So again, it's a pure red, doesn't have any brown in it. So if you want to make your reds even a little redder, then I use the 6RR or the 7RR, okay? The other thing I love to do with my reds, and this is just me, play with them and see what you think. I love to mix the coppers and the reds together. They make a beautiful, beautiful red, all right? So to me, it just adds a teeny bit more orange, not a lot, and it just gives you a little bit of a different look. So they're pretty mixed together.
Why did the reason do that?
Because as I said, and that's a good question, remember I said our reds have a little violet in there? Some companies are really an orange red. So Wella is a very orange red. So if I want to make it more of a Wella or a Goldwell red, I'll throw a little copper in there just to add a little bit more orange. The good thing about the violet is this, you guys. As our reds fade, they don't fade orange, which I love. I used other colors and nothing against those brands at all, but I always noticed when they faded, especially if I was covering gray, I'd have this gray demarcation, this little line of orangey demarcation, and then red. So I always had to try to balance that orange out. And I noticed because of the violet in here and the pigment size, they just seem to last a long time and fade more tone on tone. They're very, very pretty reds. They really are. So, and we have our mahoganies and our mahogany reds, which I love in the fall and the winter. They're pretty this time of year. And I'll even mix my reds in with my mahogany reds, my coppers in with them. They all blend together. Very, very pretty. So, and then our chocolates. Everybody's favorite are our chocolates. All right. You guys, they're warm chocolate. They have a little warmth in them. All right. And you might, and this might happen to you in the salon, where you will do a chocolate on a client, and she will come back and she will say, or he will say, I really liked it, but it was a little redder than what I wanted. Can we cool it off a little bit next time? All right? Of course. Very, very simple. A lot of times what I will do if I hear that, I will either mix a little bit of NC, which is my neutral cool, with my chocolate, or I will add like a little bit of ash in with my chocolate just to cool it off a little bit. So if I'm using a 6 chocolate, I will put like an inch and a half of 6 ash in with it just to cool it off a little bit. It won't make it blue, it won't make it brown, it'll just kind of cool it off a little bit. Or you could do the NC, but I usually always do it at the same level. Okay? All right. Now, I'm going to be really honest with you because I'm very honest and it's just your hair and it's your client. So in the chocolates, what I've noticed is this. The 4 chocolate is a 4. The 5 chocolate is a 5. The 7 chocolate is a 7. And the 8 chocolate is an 8. The only thing I've noticed is the 6 chocolate to me is a dark 6. To me, it's almost like a 5.5, you guys. I want you to know that. Again, when you're doing it on a client for the first time, to me, it seems like a dark 6. So what can I do if I want to lighten it up just a little bit?
Half and half.
Half and half of what?
7 and a 6.
I can. I can use a 7 and a 6 and make it a little bit lighter, which I've done. If I want to keep it warm and make it a little bit lighter. Or the other thing I can do is this. I will add half of my natural light series in with my chocolate, and it will just make that 6 a little more translucent, and it still keeps me brown gold. Okay? So that's an option for you if you want, you guys. Just know, but I want you to know that we're going to rinse our client so she doesn't turn jet black. And thank you, Kim. So that's the only thing. Please remember that, because the 6 chocolate is going to be a little darker. All right.
I'm sorry. You mix the chocolate with the N.
Only the 6.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I repeat. Let me repeat it. If you use the chocolates, you guys, everybody loves them. But if you use them, and your client says it's a little redder than what I wanted, then I will mix it at level. So if I'm using a 5, I will do like 3/4 5 chocolate and 1/4 5 NC. Okay, just to cool it off a little bit.
Thank you.
Or if I'm using a 6 chocolate for the first time, because to me the 6 chocolate is dark. It's a dark 6. And I don't want my client to say, I liked it, but it was really dark. All right? I will use the 6 chocolate and my 6 NL, 50% 6 chocolate, 50% 6 NL to keep it a little lighter. Okay? And only the 6. I don't do it with any other chocolate, just the 6. I want you guys to know that it's a dark 6, all right? I don't want you to be disappointed ever.
Los que hablan español, ¿entendieron? ¿Sí? ¿Todo el mundo entendió?
Okay? High lift blondes. These are our high lift blondes. Our 11 series, our 12 series. SL means super light, all right? We have an SLN, an SLA, ash, an SLG, which is gold, which I don't know why it's even in there, and an SLB, which is beige. So we have an ash, a beige, and an N, all right? I will tell you this. High lift blondes, to me, in any brand, are best only on level 6 and above. All right? A level 5, a level 4, a level 3, a level 2 will be much too gold at your end result. All right? Best on level 6 and above. I talked about this earlier with, what's your name? Naomi. You guys, color, as you know, only lifts 4 levels. 40 volume, 4 levels. So if I want to get to a 10 or a 10 plus, it's best on level 6 and above. All right? Now, we have an option for you that can give you, if it's a dark 6, all right, or sometimes a 5, I'm pretending is a 6, and I know it's still going to be a little gold. We have a tube of something called triple action clear, all right? On the tube, it will say TAC, and that means triple action clear. It is not a clear, all right? It is a booster that can give you an extra half a level or level of lift if you mix it in your formula. And why I say that is sometimes if I'm doing a blonde and she's not colored and she's a dark 6 or a 5 and I want to cheat a little bit, I will do 3/4 of my SLA, my ash, and 1/4 of the triple action clear in my formula, 40 volume, and it will give me that little extra lift. All right? The other thing I will do is this. Sometimes with my reds, all right, on level 5 or 4, and I want my reds to be a little bit brighter, and maybe I'm doing some red highlights, I will add 1/4 of my triple action clear in my formula with my reds, and it will give me a little extra boost, which pulls out a little bit more orange, which gives me a little brighter red. Does that make sense? So it's a nice booster, all right, and that's what it's to be used for. We do have a clear, and we do have a clear in the dim-eye, so you can use it as a gloss treatment if you want, or if you want to use it as a dim-eye to dilute. I never use it that way, but if you want to do a gloss treatment, sometimes you can, and that's to be used with the balancing lotion, all right? So, because it's a dim-eye, all right? You guys, the directs. Love our directs. I love these a lot. I really like them. Now, I want you to know that we just launched in our directs. It's not in this box. Speaking of clear, we just launched a clear in our Deep Shine directs. It is a clear, period, clear. So I will use that as a gloss. No ammonia, gives a nice shine to the hair if you want to use it alone. Or you can mix it with any of these colors to make them pastel. So if I want a pink that is like a cotton candy pink, not a bright, bright pink, then I will mix a lot of clear to a little bit of pink and mix it in a bowl, paint it on a white towel or a piece of paper, because what you see is what you get. So mix it to the way you want it, all right? We have a lot of stylists, a lot of our designers pastels seem to be really popular right now. So, and I just want you to know that it's a lot of clear to a little bit of direct when you want your pastels, all right? I mean almost sometimes 3/4 of a tube to like an inch of direct, all right? So, but when you mix it, you're gonna see what you get, all right? So we have one that likes, she does a sherbet and kind of the green, she makes this real light, it's pretty, but it's a lot of clear, all right? And I'm really happy we have the clear now, all right? So, when you guys use the directs, just remember this. The hair has to be at least a level 8, 9, or 10. To me, the hair can be too light. And to me, when you're at that 10 level, sometimes it's hard to get enough stain on there, and it just doesn't seem to last as long. So to me, like a level 9 is as light as you need to go, all right? If for whatever reason you're using the Merlot, which is kind of a wine-colored red, or the red, I notice that if I lift the hair to like an 8G and then put my red over the top of it, it's brighter because I have a little bit of that kind of orange base underneath it, so it makes my red even a little bit brighter. All right, so just remember that when you're doing your reds, they don't have to be quite as light. All right, one of my favorites is the teal. Love the teal. when you use these, okay, the hair has to be, yeah, you have to lift the hair to at least an 8, 9, or 10. To me, you guys, 10, to me, 10 is a little too light, all right? I think 8 or 9 are your best kind of levels to put it on. Processing time is 30 minutes. If you can leave it on for an hour, hallelujah. To me, the longer the better, all right? There are times, and nothing is perfect, there are times when I want it bright, that I will do it back to back, all right? So you will lighten the hair. It goes on dry hair. So you will lighten it, bleach it, dry that section, put your direct on it. The more direct you put on the hair, the better. Really saturate the hair, all right? A lot of direct. Sit for 30 minutes. Rinse in cool water only. Do not shampoo these, please. Because the minute you hit them with warm water and shampoo them, you're going to start to strip that color off the hair. Can you dry her for me?
Yeah.
Please? I'm sorry.
Can you talk longer?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very loud. So, rinse cool water only. All right? So, with all of them, pastels, permanent colors, whatever. Now, we have a... Sure. We have a lock-in treatment, and I'm not trying to sell you something. This is a good product. We have a lock-in treatment that I like to use when I do my directs or I do color. It just kind of mist it on the hair. It helps to kind of hold the color in. The other thing this treatment has, you leave it in the hair. You spray it on, shampoo, condition, spray this on, use your styling products right over the top of it, and go about your day. This has an ingredient called Chromavel in it. I try to sell this to almost every one of my clients, colored or not. The Chromavel is a very, and look it up, the Chromavel is a very high-end sunscreen. This is a great protector for the hair, for the sun, the environment, wear and tear of every day. That's another reason I really like this. I love to give it to my clients in the summer or the winter if they're skiing a lot or they're going to the beach a lot in the summer. I just have them take it to the beach, spray it on after they get out of the water, and it just really kind of helps to protect the hair. So it's great for that as well. It's just not a lock-in treatment only, okay? Good retail product, it really is. So, now the directs, I want to talk to you about one color. And remember I said we had a clear. You guys, we have a shade called Icy White. All right? This is not white. All right? It has a little bit of lavender in it. All right? So I will use this sometimes if I want to do a quick little toner. All right? Because it has that little bit of lavender in it. Or that pastel kind of silvery look is real popular right now. I will use this once in a while, either alone or with the clear, depending on what shade I want, because it does have a little bit of that lavender in it, all right? I want to tell you this, though, because it's shocking. And the first time I ever used it, I remember it to this day, all right? When it goes on the hair, it looks Smurf blue. So when you put it on the hair, the first thing you're going to want to do is get it off the hair because it looks Smurf blue. So I was at a show, I was on stage, I put it on this blonde hair to show how it toned. It was Smurf blue, and I said, all right, I think we're good. I took it off, rinsed it off, and it did absolutely nothing. So I had to put it on again and let it process. So just don't freak out, but I want you to know when you put it on what it looks like. Okay, so don't be shocked. All right, so You know, it honestly depends. I'll leave it on sometimes from 3 to 20 minutes. It really kind of depends on the client and what you're looking for. So,
Question.
uh-huh.
I have a client, she have very dark color.
Okay, she has a client that has dark color,
Yeah, she color herself. And she
box
like-
color.
Yeah, looks color and color. Now she come and ask me, she wants the purple light.
Okay.
I know dark color is hard to remove. And what do you recommend?
All right, you guys, and that's a great segue. Thank you very much. I want to talk to you about a product that we have, and I have to get here because it's kind of where we're going, and it was a great segue. You guys, we have a product called Eliminate. All right, this is a color remover for permanent color. All right, so on that client who has really dark hair, or a client that you have come in the salon that doesn't want to be that color anymore, she wants to go to a lighter shade or go to another color, and what you don't want to do is bleach it out and leave the bleach on there for 50 minutes and get to a crummy orange that you're going to have to tone anyway and damage the hair. Or it's a client that you can't highlight. You can't say, let's highlight it, and eventually we'll get lighter. And 16 highlights later, you're basically close to where you want to be, okay? You guys, this isn't easy to use. It's not a miracle product, but it works really, really well, all right? Kim, for example, had a client that came in, and I'll let her share when I'm done, had a client that came in, wanted blue, I believe, and dark hair. She eliminated, then did a lightening service, and then did the blue. All right. This is to remove permanent color, you guys. All right, and it works extremely well. Has an odor a little bit like rotten eggs or sulfur. It's not as bad as some, and that's why I like it. The fragrance isn't horrible. All right, you guys. There's 3 steps. And there's something that's real important that I want you to know. Bottles 1 and 2 go together, equal parts, 50-50, put them in the bowl. So my client comes in, she has dark hair, and I want to get rid of some of it, all right? And some of it I want to be blue. Maybe I don't want to do the whole head, maybe I just want to do the bottom, all right? And leave the top dark, all right? So I'm going to apply it on the hair that I want to lighten or remove the color. Again, it's to remove permanent color only. It is not supposed to remove direct colors. So if you have somebody that comes in that's purple and doesn't want to be purple anymore, this really isn't meant for that. Can you use it? You can try it, and sometimes it works a little bit, and then you can lighten over. But it's not meant to be used for that, okay? So, your client comes in, 1 and 2 go together. You don't have to shampoo the hair. You mix 1 and 2 together, you put it on the hair, put a plastic cap over it, put your client under the dryer for 20 minutes. All right. All that this does, 1 and 2, you guys, you know, and you've seen the pictures, when a color goes in the cortex, color locks together and they form like this chain. And the chain wraps around each other and it's almost like a rope inside the hair. The Eliminate, all the Eliminate does is it loosens up and unlocks that chain. All right? So it just reverses the charge of the color and it unlocks the color. What gets the color out of the hair is the shampooing. So, must shampoo at least 3 times with a clarifying shampoo. Shampoo, manipulate the hair, work the hair, get the color out of the hair. Rinse, shampoo again, rinse, shampoo again. If you can force yourself to do it 4 times, do it. All right? The more times you shampoo, the more kind of color you'll be able to get off. There's a step 3 that is extremely important. Sometimes you will have shampooed 3 times, and you will look at your client and you will say, wow, that really worked, the color is all gone. Sometimes it will look like it's all gone. So it's not. Sometimes it's not. There's a bottle in here, number 3, and what you'll do when you're done shampooing, can I use your head for a second? I've shampooed, what's your name?
Yanni.
Vianney? Vianney?
Yanni.
You have a short? So, you've shampooed 3 times. I'm going to take a section, just a section. I don't have to do it on the whole head. And I'm going to squirt step 3 on that section. Thank you very much. And in about 5 minutes, if that color isn't all gone, you're going to see it pop back up again. Because this is a developer. And what happens, you guys, is this, and I hear this. I used it and I didn't like it because it turned dark on me again. If you don't do step 3 and it looks like it's all gone and you put your color over the top of it, as that color processes, that old color is going to reoxidize again and it's going to come back. This is a developer. Basically, it's a 10-volume developer. And what it does, if that color isn't all gone, it reoxidizes that color again. If you see that, do it again. You can do 3 of these in one visit if you need to. All right. It's a lot of work, you guys. But the good thing about the Eliminate is this. It can't, and I repeat, cannot lift the natural level of the hair. So if you're a 4 and she's lifted to a 7 or a 10 and you remove all the color, this is going to be a 4 and this is going to be a 10. All right? This isn't going to be an 8 and this isn't going to be an 11. All right? So it can't lift the natural level of the hair, which is wonderful. The other thing it does not do, and I really mean this, it does not damage the hair. So unlike a bleach shampoo or a lightening service, sometimes, no matter how wonderful that product is, you're going to do a little damage to the hair. All right? This doesn't. All right? But the only other thing I want to say is when you're done, you've got it all done, you've done test 3, everything's ready to go, that cuticle is going to be like this. The hair isn't going to be damaged, but it's going to feel rough because you've stripped color out of that hair and you've opened that cuticle like this so you can get the color out. So when you choose your shade that you're going to put over the top of it, I suggest that you do 1 or 2 levels lighter than what you want your target color to be. So if you want a 6, I would use a 7 at least. All right? Do me a favor, do a strand test real quick just to kind of get an idea of how dark you're going to go, because it's going to go darker on you. All right? So just remember that in the back of your mind. Pick at least a level to a level and a half lighter than what you want your end result to be. All right? And there are times after you've done all this, you've done your color over the top of it, you might have a client that maybe in 3 or 4 weeks is going to come back and you're going to put another color over the top of it. There's nothing perfect about corrective color. You guys, sometimes it takes a little time to get to the end result. The only thing I can say is this, and this is my little soapbox: do not guarantee your end result with a corrective color. We can work towards this. It's not going to be perfect today. All right? And do not, and this is my biggest soapbox of all for all of us, including myself, do not undercharge yourself for corrective color. Do not do that. You guys, it might take 3.5 hours to 4 hours by the time you start somebody till the time they leave your salon before you're done with the corrective color. All right? And if you charge for 2 hours of your time, you're getting cheated. You really are. And this is what happens to all of us. And I don't care what you charge, what I charge, it makes no difference to me at all. But you all have an idea in an 8-hour period in a busy week what you make an hour. Break it down, all right? It's not that complicated. Your corrective color should be very, very close to what you get per hour. All right, because if you spend 3 hours on somebody and your corrective color price is worth 2 hours, you're losing an hour of your time and it's really not worth it for you. It's just not. This is the other thing that happens to every one of us, and I'm extremely guilty of this. It's going to be about 3 hours time. This is what it's going to be an hour. And I hear, oh, I can't afford that. I really can't. I can't do that. I've got this, blah, 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 blah. And then I say, okay, well, I'll do it for this. And I am repetitively, I have done this in the past, and I'm trying my hardest not to do this anymore. Because I'm not kidding you guys. What happens with the money she doesn't pay us, she goes across the street, she buys a blouse, a pair of shoes, and nothing against this person, but if she can save money for me, she's going to spend it somewhere else. I cannot work on my car to save my life. I cannot go to my mechanic and ask him to give me a discount because I can't afford it. I don't know one, and none I go to are giving me a discount. Can't go to my doctor and get a discount. Can't go to my plumber and get a discount. Why are we the ones that believe we need to give discounts? Because we really want to please everybody that comes in the salon, and that's our most motivation. It really is. And I'm horrible guilty of that. But we really do kind of underprice ourselves sometimes. So if I can say anything about corrective color, it's those two things. Don't guarantee the end result, and do not cheat yourself on price. Because they can't go anywhere else and get it done the same way, or with anybody that cares as much as you do. It's just not going to happen, because you've seen it before, and you've seen them come back, and you've seen them come back. All right, so that's my little soapbox. Eliminate is a wonderful, wonderful product, and again, no damage. Takes some time, but if you have a client that you really need to do a color remover, this is a great product for that. It's on sale right now. For $9.95.
El precio regular es $15. Está ahorita a $9.95. O sea, $5 menos si lo quieren a obtener el día de hoy. Lo que quieran, el color trimmer en este producto.
Oh, I have a question.
Yes.
That
$8.
color is only for one person, or you can use it different way?
You guys, the question was, is this box only for one person, or can you use it for more than one person? And it really depends on the length of hair. And?
I use some.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't have to use the whole box.
No.
Yeah. For, what's your name?
No, any I will use that
Yeah.
before, like two for long hair, like Spangler, like the one. Next, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it really just depends on the length of hair. You know, if it's really thick, if it's really long. Pardon me?
We have to use that just one time, and
When you put it together, it's gone, so you cannot use it. Just look
but
like
I
a color.
said, how many levels eliminate? With
How many
one
times?
Can do
Yeah.
2
Okay.
times.
Remember this, you guys. When you're done the first time, you've done one, maybe you haven't used it all, you used half a bottle of 1 and 2, all right? And you put it on, she's under the dryer for 20 minutes, you've shampooed, you did step 3, you tested it, and you see a little color come back.
Okay.
Okay, if you see color come back, then you need to do it again.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
That's
You can, if you need to, do this 3 times in one day without doing any damage to the hair. And you guys, if you have somebody that comes in that has a box jet black color, you're going to do it 3 times. There's no doubt in my mind. And at the end of it, she's going to be about a level 6 reddish orange. But at least you're going to be able to get her to a 6, and then you're going to tone her with an ash, and she's going to be a pretty 6 brown. She's not going to be 2 any longer. and then you're going to eventually kind of get her there wherever she wants to be. She's not going to be a 10. It's not going to happen. So, and only in those cases, you know. So, and sometimes I will use this on direct. You guys, I will. If I have a pink or a blue or a purple, I will try this first. And sometimes it removes enough of it to where then I can do like a bleach shampoo over the top of it, and it will help. The other question that I get asked a lot is, when I'm done with this, can I do a lightening service after? If I need to, yes, I can. All right. If you wanted to do some highlights afterwards, you could. All right. And because honestly, this doesn't damage the hair. Okay, it really doesn't. So, so it's an option. It is if you really need to. Remember, the directs need to be at least a level 8 or 9. Sometimes if the hair is too light, it really just doesn't hold as well. All right, so 8 and 9, 30 minutes, rinse in cool water only. All right.
Usually, how long they last if they are right?
You guys, we say, the question was how long do they last? And it's always the question. I'm going to be honest with you. We say 20 shampoos, all right? I'm going to tell you sometimes purple, blue, green will be in there 4 months later.
Yeah.
All right? Sometimes it will be gone in 20 shampoos. Not very often, but so it really depends on the client. The other thing, you guys, really, all kidding aside, if you have a client that you're doing a full head on, or a lot of pastels, or a lot of direct, if you can talk them into using a dry shampoo in between and not shampoo as much, it really does help to kind of preserve that color. Because the less they shampoo, the longer it's going to last. So I really like to get my clients to use a dry shampoo if they can. Quickly, you heard about the opportunity for this on deal. I do want to explain something real quick to you. Anything in this packaging, all right, all of the opportunities that you have in those two cases, anything that you see in this packaging have 3 ingredients in them across the board. Everything has quinoa, hydrolyzed keratin, and hydrolyzed amino silk. All right, consistent through everything in these packaging. It's not just a marketing story, but the issue is this. Those 3 ingredients are small enough, hence the micropigments, to slightly go underneath the cuticle to help protect your color surfaces. Period. No matter what color you use. So you have a styling ingredient that not only helps you style, but it truly helps to kind of protect the color at the same time. That's the purpose of this line.